Hey there all you good people, Joe from Joe's Computer Museum. Today I'm taking a look at the no-slot clock from UltimateMicro. I'll tell you a bit about how it works, how no-slot clocks came to be, and then we'll dive right in and show the clock in action. Warm up the CRT, it's time for another episode. The original Apple II didn't have a clock. In the beginning, you had to add a card to the machine to get clock functionality, usually the Thunder clock. Now, this took up a precious slot, and the folks who needed clocks usually needed all of their slots, too. So you could get around this problem with the Dallas smartwatch. It was designed to work in just about any computer with a 28-pin ROM socket. You just stick the clock under one of your ROM chips, and you're good to go. Now, how does that work, you wonder? Won't that mess with the machine, interfere with the ROM? The answer is no, because what it does is really quite clever. Under normal operation, the device passes through all address and data signals and does nothing. But the device listens to the bus for a specific sequence of bytes within a certain time frame. When that happens, the clock will basically then replace all reads to anywhere in the ROM's address space with the clock data until it's all been read, and then it returns the ROM to normal. The process is actually quite a bit more complicated than that, but you get the idea. All you had to do to get it to work was write a driver for your application, and what you got was magic. A clock in your Apple II that doesn't use a slot, hence the name No Slot Clock. ProDOS supports Thunderclock compatible clocks right out of the box, so if your driver emulates a Thunderclock, you're gold. So what's the downside of this clock, you ask? First off, Dallas and pretty much all of the aftermarket clones ship the clock with the battery sealed under epoxy. So when the battery dies in a decade or so, you have to buy a new clock. Secondly, the thing is thick. So thick, in fact, that it can block the use of longer cards in certain slots and can give you difficulty in Apple IIc models. So are we out of luck? Not anymore, because the folks at UltimateMicro have created a functional clone of the Dallas smartwatch that fixes both of those problems. Let's dive in, shall we? So here we have the Dallas smartwatch and the UltimateMicro no slot clock. On the left, here's the smartwatch. And you can tell it's a pretty bog standard thing, 28 pins, all encased in plastic. And if you look very carefully on the bottom there, if I can get the angle right, you can see that that's all gobbed in there with this nasty black epoxy. There it is. So that means when the battery dies on this, you have to buy an entirely new clock. Now these things cost about $50 in bulk, and singles are somewhere closer to $80. So yeah, that's not a very good investment. They've kind of set up a printer cartridge style regime with those things, and it kind of ticks me off. Here is the no slot clock from UltimateMicro. First thing you notice right on the top is the replaceable battery. So when the battery dies, put a new battery in it. Secondly, these things are cheaper. These are $50 a piece. Those are $50 in bulk, so that gives you some sort of idea there. And another thing you'll notice on the top of this, it uses machine pin holes, and where this has those weird tension springs. So this is going to last a little bit longer as well. Final little comparison is a side-by-side of the thickness of these two things, if I can get this in frame. And as you can see, the no-slot clock over here is half the thickness of this guy over here, the Dallas smartwatch. So when you're trying to put this in your ROM socket and you've got a really long card in slot 5, 6, or 7, wherever your socket might be, this is going to clear a lot better. So let's take a look at this installed in the machine and see how everything functions. So we're going to go ahead and demo the installation of the no slot clock. First thing you have to look at is right there in the bottom, if I can get it to focus correctly. There we go. See that word notch? That is important. If you can see on these chips right here, there's a notch there and a notch there. All the notches on this board are facing this direction. So you want to make sure that that goes in there facing that direction. This is really super easy to install with your ROM already removed. All you have to do is just pop it into that socket with the notch word facing down. Pop it in there. That is really super simple. And then the next thing we do is we get our ROM that I've already removed. And you'll note I have the notch facing down there. We go ahead and we put the ROM on top of it very carefully. Push it down in place. Oh, if I can get it to behave for me. It's being belligerent. Uh-oh. Technical difficulty. Ah, there we go. And there it is installed in there. How easy is that? So I've booted this guy up to Apple II Desktop because it happens to be what I have installed here. So to program the no-slot clock, you're going to want to download a disk image that has the driver and tools on it necessary to make this work. I'll put the name of the disk image in right there. There it is. And basically you copy these files off of that disk image onto each disk image or each disk that you're wanting the no-slot clock to work in, and it sets up the driver and makes it work. Now, on my Apple II Desktop installation, I've already done this, so I'm going to spare you all the boring process of showing you how to copy files. But we'll go in here. We will load that up. The first thing you need to note is that the no-slot clock system driver here, this file right here, that sets up ProDOS to function correctly with the clock. This has to be the first system file on your disk so that this loads first. And then your regular system files come after that. So as you can see, that's how I have that set up here. The other tool is the NSClock utils. This is a little program that allows you to program the date and time of the clock if you happen to be using it in a situation where your operating environment can't set the time, the date and time for you. So we'll go ahead and launch this and show you how this works. Of course, the first option here is install nsclock.system. This will, when you run this from the disk, it will actually install it on whatever disk you want to install it on, which is pretty cool. But this is a more important item for what we're viewing here. It's the set the time option, so let's take a look. And here we can set the date and time. It's 2015, it's January, it's the 14th, that all makes sense. It is about 8:57 p.m. when I'm doing all that, so you just set all those up, and when you're ready, you hit the set the clock now, and it does it. If you look in the lower right corner, it has the date and the time and everything set. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and quit the utilities now, go back to the desktop. Gosh, I love the card in this thing. It's so fast. So let's go to the date, and as you can see, 14th of January 2015. Hey man, it works. ProDOS sees it, and with that in there, it will date and timestamp all your files. That is pretty awesome. Final thoughts? It works perfectly. It functions exactly like a Dallas smartwatch, which is what you need for compatibility. Although the thinner profile should help with clearing longer cards, the winning feature is the replaceable battery. It's so much better to replace a 25-cent battery than to have to buy another $50 clock when the battery dies. It comes with instructions that make install pretty easy, and overall the instructions are okay, but they could use a review as there's some vague information regarding disassembly, but nothing that will prevent you from doing it correctly. There are no instructions for the Apple IIc Plus, and you have to infer from the Apple IIc instructions. Since the computers are mostly the same, you shouldn't have too much trouble. One weird thing I noted is that my instructions were printed with a black and white laser printer. However, the instructions make references to colors inside the instructions that you can't see. Maybe I'm just nitpicking. The cool reason being, because why would you say the cool reason being? Installation can be tricky, depending on your machine. Be very careful removing your ROM so that you don't bin pins. On my first go-around, I broke a pin on the clock, and UltimateMicro had to ship me a replacement. Just go slow and take your time and you'll be okay. An IC extractor can help here, but remember, it is not a guarantee. Something worth mentioning is the poor quality ROM sockets used in the Apple II series. Many of them, including mine, have issues after the ROM is removed, and the clock and ROM combo is reinstalled. UltimateMicro is aware of this issue and is working on a new version to help account for this. Another important note is that the clock will fit in an Apple IIc or IIc Plus with a RAM option installed, like the Apple 1 meg RAM board. Overall, I think this is clear. If you need a clock for your Apple II, UltimateMicro's no-slot clock is the clear winner. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, leave me a comment, and subscribe. And remember, 8 bits are all you need.